Hey y'all, welcome back to another Friday productivity call. I'm your host, Jason Will, real estate broker at Blueprint Realty Company. Been off for a few weeks to let you guys, hopefully you've invested the time to dive into some of those past interviews I've done with some really successful agents and gotten some really great tips from them and really just some motivation and inspiration. If you're watching this and you feel like you have something to offer the real estate industry in terms of advice, training, just general tips that are working for you, you want to pay that forward, just reach out to me, reply to this email, call or text me 251-583-9728. Let's set up a conversation about it, schedule a Zoom and get you featured on one of these calls. These get featured on social, they get featured on our YouTube channel, and they go out in our newsletter. So it's a great way for you to potentially generate some referral business as well. I know if you help me do something, help me accomplish something, help open a door for me in real estate, I'm going to definitely keep you top of mind when I have a referral opportunity in your marketplace. What I want to talk about today is really the two things that have made the biggest impact on my personal real estate business in 2025. If you don't know much about me, I spent a long time as a real estate team leader, brokerage owner, really a real estate trainer, and was in and out really of the real estate business, but that's no way to run a real estate business. And then I moved to a completely new area where I had, basically zero sphere of influence. So had been full-time agent since 2024, rebuilding my business. It has been a lot of work to start from scratch, especially when you're an old guy like me, all this white hair. But it's been enlightening and it's been very, I think, beneficial for me as a real estate trainer because I've never wanted to give up this part of the business because it has been such a great source of fulfillment for me. But also, I really want to pay it forward because I have so many mentors still to this day. I mean, people I can call that will devote time to me to answer my questions, and that's really important, right? To be a real estate agent and to have a question and not wanting to burden anybody or just not knowing who to call. And I always want to put myself out there as somebody that you can call if you don't have anybody to call. And if I don't know how to help you in a specific area of interest or concern or need, then I know who to connect you with. So just want to put that out there. But all right, so far for me in 2025, the biggest things that have been in terms of real estate sales closings have been twofold. A developing a real estate specialization, which I started in 2024 and have continued through 2025, and it has been a challenge, right? So it's a challenge to build a specialization in one focus market segment. That's can be a challenge because it takes a while to generate business in that area. So what I do that works in conjunction with the specialization, but is also very low-hanging fruit, is I target for sale by owners. Okay, and I'll work with a for sale by owner really by any means necessary. I'll do marketing for them. Have had the most success approaching them from a marketing standpoint and just asking them, hey, can I feature your video on my YouTube channel? And I'll provide an example of some prior work, or I'll say, hey, happy to send you some examples upon request. Sometimes I get an immediate response. Sometimes it takes a little bit of follow up. But so far this year, I was just talking to Blake Ray about this the other day. I took a FSBO listing at a very reduced commission to get my foot in the door as a listing agent on Smith Lake in Alabama. I have got one pending sale right around $1 million, and I've got buyers that are looking around 800,000 to as high as like 1.2 million from that opportunity. I have a pending right now two pendings right now that are specialization related. So that pending, one of those pending sales I was just mentioning is a new construction that'll be completed, new construction lake house that'll be completed spring of next year. And depending on the final upgrades and things like that, it's going to probably be right around $1 million. But yeah, that came from a sign call off that FSBO. I've got a reduced commission FSBO that I have listed in my neighborhood and showing property off a sign call to some folks this Saturday, price range up to 450 max. So, that's pretty good stuff. So using the FSBO to both further my specialization and to supplement my income until the specialization becomes so established. Like my goal is I've got just under 50,000 shy of 1.5 million pending closing in November. And I want to do that consistently every month, somewhere around 1 million plus closings every single month. And I want that to be generated in my specialization. One of the pending sales I have that's closing this month is a referral from a husband and wife team in Baldwin County that I guess just have seen my social media just pounding that rock. About 80% of the content I do is specialization focused, is lake focused. And it's interesting because right now I've got pending sales on 3 different lakes: Smith Lake, Logan Martin, and Lake Martin. And that's just wild to me. So I really want to focus and my specialization is Smith Lake, and it's kind of ballooned into like an Alabama lake specialist. So anything kind of north of Montgomery. Right now the only lake I really don't service is, Lake Eufaula and maybe 1 or 2 other smaller lakes. But anywhere else, I've got the data feeds going to my website. I mean, I'm set up and ready to rock and service clients that are looking at multiple different lakes. And, that's a unique situation because the couple I have pending right now at 950,000 started out looking on Smith Lake, and then they're like, "Hey, are there any other lakes around here we can look at?" And I said, "Sure." The water quality is not as pristine as Smith Lake, but the real estate, you can get twice as much house on Lake Martin or Logan Martin, not Lake Martin. Lake Martin's the most expensive lake. And they're like, "Fine. Let's do it." I mean, the most important thing to them was being able to get the most house for the money and be able to retire on the water from Silver Spring, Maryland. So that was awesome. So I wanted to spend a little time on the call today just providing some advice on, how to get started with for sale by owners, and then how to maybe start thinking about a specialization. The specialization is something I've been preaching well before I even started on the journey myself. And, specializing in real estate in a lot of areas, in a lot of cases, removes selling. So the more specialized you get, the less you have to chase the business and the more the business starts really pursuing you. People start recommending, referring, you maintain this top of mind awareness in that regard. So it's really, really powerful. I've done a lot of these, live Zoom calls, pre-recorded, in-person trainings, one-on-one coaching, you name it, preaching the specialization. And very few, if any, I don't really have a bright, shining example of a student or coaching client or mentee that is really excelling in this. And, I can't really tell you why. I think, a lot of the feedback I get is that people just have a hard time deciding, what they want to specialize in. And I get it. There's a lot of different aspects of the real estate business, a lot of different things you could choose. And for some people, they just don't know what they're passionate about. So I'm somebody that's been passionate about waterfront property ever since I was a little kid. My family had real estate they owned in Orange Beach going back, well over 100 years now. So I just grew up, spending time in Orange Beach. And then, around my teenage years, My parents bought a house on Fish River, and so grew up on the river, and I had that lake, or not lake, but that freshwater slash salt life thing going on. So when we moved north to Birmingham, and I got around some of these big lakes and started spending time on, especially Smith Lake, I was like, wow, this may be something where I want to develop a specialization and could see myself, retiring selling lake homes, primarily lake homes. God, I mean, even, and I say retiring, but maybe just like these lake homes, the price point, average price point, like 700,000. So one or two of those deals a month, even if I just did one a month, the older I get, the slower I get, I could still be able to do that. There's a lot of lake agents that sell real estate by boat. So they just take their clients to the showings by boat. I think that's pretty cool. There's a lot of cool things about it. The biggest benefit that I really want you to hear is that it just doesn't feel like work to me. I'm enjoying it. I enjoy being outside, whether it's hot or cold. The scenery is beautiful. The client experience is different. It's much more laid back. It's much more chill, but that does create some difficulties because people aren't going to pull the trigger on a second home, a vacation rental, unless, a lot, if not all the boxes get checked. And so it's not a primal, immediate need. And so it's one that they can put off until the right house presents itself. So you just got to be super patient in that regard. I think about all the opportunities that have come like this close, but the people have backed off for one reason or another. And a lot of times with second homes, it's economy driven. So we have all this uncertainty in the economy right now. And, that gives people pause and makes people be more conservative, with their finances and kind of hunker down. So got to keep that in mind. Now, one of the easiest specializations that I recommend is new construction because the inventory is already there. All these new communities are just popping up like crazy. So wherever you are, you probably got D.R. Horton, you got Lennar, and you've got one of these big builders in your marketplace building. And these new construction sales associates are very eager to work with real estate agents and create content with real estate agents or provide content opportunities for agents. The other thing I like about new construction sales is that it typically pays more. There's a higher commission percentage. There is a bonus opportunity that usually presents itself. If you sell enough of their homes, you can reach a VIP status. A lot of times there's perks, football tickets, opportunities to win trips. It's just good. And then the other thing is that the builder and the builder representative, they do most of the work. So you can easily handle a much larger capacity of these pendings on a monthly basis than you could a traditional real estate sale. So there's that. But other things that kind of come to mind, like if you're at the beach, obviously you'd want to consider maybe being a condo specialist, golf course specialist. Some people just love working with first-time home buyers. It's a very hard specialization because you're dealing with a lower price point, and the deals are typically harder to get done based on, the client's credit history and financial situation, debt to income ratio, and then you've got to deal with properties that typically aren't in, great condition. So there can be some issues there with lending and things like that. So I would, just not to harp on this too much, I would just highly recommend that if you're watching this, you've made it this far, that you consider a specialization and you just consider developing the specialization while you're doing what it is that you're doing. So you don't stop what you're doing. You're just going to try to, maybe let's try to balance out the content, really establish yourself as a specialist, put it in that little bio section on Facebook, create some graphics, put it in your Facebook, header, your cover photo, and just start putting that out there. Start blogging about it, start doing reels and TikToks about it. But at the same time, you're like, hey, I'm still doing this. There's all this other real estate content coming out, and you're still doing your day-to-day stuff. You can also just be a neighborhood specialist if the neighborhood's big enough. So let's say you've got a neighborhood that is, 1,500, 2,000, 2,500 homes. these are big communities. Typically, you can specialize in one of these communities, and very rarely, if you get to be like the go-to person, God, how nice would it be just to like 80% of your sales come from one like designated pocket area, where you're just not driving all over the place. Now, with my specialization on the lake, I might have to drive 2 hours, but I use that 2 hours wisely. I'm listening to podcasts, I'm listening to audiobooks, I'm talking on the phone to folks. And again, it just doesn't feel like work because I know I'm going to enjoy the activity where my final destination is. But I know a lot of folks that, they specialize in a neighborhood and they live in that neighborhood, and very rarely do they leave that neighborhood to sell real estate. Just like imagine what that life is like. You just live and breathe community with your neighbors, anything that's going on in the subdivision. You're so much easier to preview the homes and keep up with the market if you've got a tighter radius. So lots of benefits there. But if you've got a big subdivision you're working on, typically there's going to be some for sale by owner opportunities within that subdivision. You can also just be a city or area specialist within a zip code. So in Hoover, where I am, Hoover is a big city in terms of geography, and there's a lot of different segments to Hoover. So, for instance, I could be a Bluff Park specialist. Bluff Park is a really popular area in Hoover. Greystone Golf Course Community, also in Hoover, I could specialize in, and then two different parts of Hoover. If I'm in the Greystone, let's say if I wanted to specialize in that community, gated luxury golf course community with a massive amount of homes, it's also on that 280 corridor. So a big part of developing this specialization is to also specialize in the people, the local small business owners, the community events, and all those things. So lots of stuff going on within the community in terms of events, but also outside of the community, which is really, really important. So in terms of the for sale by owner, I think the easiest thing for me to do is just to advise you to use Zillow. All right. So there's a lot of other FSBO platforms out there, but Zillow is just the easiest for me because I've got this specialization that I'm spending about 80% of my time on. And sometimes that 80% does include for sale by owners that are selling lake properties, but it just could be any random for sale by owner in any marketplace within a drivable distance around me. So I search multiple cities and I'm approaching everybody I can. I've got a YouTube channel that's just for like Alabama properties. And then I've got one that's just for Smith Lake. So that's my goal. And the more defined you get this, the more laser focused you become, the more specific your specialization is, the better it's going to be. Like Hoover's a huge place. If I want to say I'm a Hoover specialist, I may have a hard time developing top of mind awareness if I don't pick one section of Hoover to really focus on. Hoover's got multiple zip codes. So 35226 is one of the most affluent zip codes in Hoover. It's got some of the best communities that have some of the wide, broadest ranging amenities. So there's a lot of content opportunities there. A lot of these subdivisions have like restaurants inside of them, walking distance to schools. They have tons of like amenities inside the community. So it's really, really great. But Zillow provides the phone number. A lot of us have Forewarn for free, the app on our phone. So we can use Forewarn to see the name behind the number. It's always good to say, hey, Jack, or hey, Michelle, just saw your listing on Zillow. Would love to feature it on my YouTube channel. Would you be open to that? There's no cost involved. The big thing with FSBOs when you reach out to them, and I think really key thing to hear is I'm not calling them. I'm texting them. So I know, in the past, I've done a lot of FSBO calling. It's just conveniently gotten this way for real estate agents, in my opinion, that people just don't like to be called. The more time goes on, the more people want to be texted and they see a phone call as an intrusion. And what's added fuel to that fire is all the spam calls that we get. So this is going to take a little pressure off of you. I would encourage you to try to start that dialogue via text, and as soon as possible, get on the phone and have a conversation and do some qualifying and get some good information about maybe what the seller wants you to focus your marketing efforts on. What do they feel like are the top selling features of their property is a good thing to kind of start off with. A lot of times I get so busy I don't even use forewarn. I just like, hey, I use the little hey emoji, hey, saw your house on Zillow, would love to feature it. But again, the biggest things they want to know is like, what's it going to cost? What's the catch? So I'll just say, hey, there's nothing to sign. It's totally free. It's just a way for both of us to gain exposure, right? And if I've gotten some for sale by owners that have pushed back on that and said, I appreciate it, but I've got it under control. I had a professional photographer come out and do a video. And I would say, just don't stop there. There is one more move you have to make or can make if you so choose. And that's just to say, hey, well, there's no such thing as too much free marketing. And if that doesn't resonate with them, then move on. If you Google your zip code, your city, so if I just Google Hoover FSBO, it's going to pull up a link that'll show all the for sale by owners in Hoover. The number for the for sale by owner is in just like below the description of the Zillow listing. And so it is plug and play. Plug and play. All right. There's a lot of different things you can do with this FSBO. I always, with that text messaging, you have something in writing saying that, you have their permission to market their property, which is key. You do need to note every time you market a FSBO on social media that it is a FSBO listing and that your brokerage has no formal representation agreement with that seller. That's pretty much all you need to do to keep your nose clean. I know there's a lot of brokerages and brokers out there that say stay the hell away from for sale by owners. I think that's ridiculous. But the YouTube video is a great way for you to get to know these people, establish rapport, and then see where the opportunity leads. So a lot of times I'm going to start with the video and I'll send market reports. You can send bi-monthly, monthly market reports. I mean, some of these for sale by owners, it takes several weeks, if not maybe a month or two, to really get somewhere, right? To really to earn their trust. And as we know, or should know, trust equals capacity. So, once that rapport is developed, I might say, hey, how about an open house? Hey, how about this? Hey, how about that? Hey, how about everybody that calls you from the FSBO listing that's not a real estate agent? Maybe you send them to me and I'll qualify them. Like I'll make sure I'll get them with a lender, make sure they're pre-approved. There's just a lot of ways to work and support a for sale by owner and at the same time support yourself. Okay. So really, really important stuff there. I'm going to include a lot of notes with this. I just don't want it to go too long and just put this opportunity, kind of lay it at your doorstep. If you want to do a deeper dive with a one-on-one phone call or Zoom on developing a specialization or, working for sale by owners, generating sales and listings from for sale by owners, just reach out to me on my cell. Again, that number is 251-583-9728. I'm waiting and waiting to have enough business generated from YouTube to put together a big YouTube training and guide folks there. But, that's just another little, I think maybe just a caveat to this call is that, YouTube is so incredibly powerful. I've got a number of folks that I'm working with from YouTube, haven't closed any of them yet, but as soon as I close like 3 to 5 of them, I'm going to be hosting probably a live real estate training in the Birmingham area, which you'd want to drive to if you're driving distance to come hear that, because YouTube totally free, and I love free stuff that generates business. All right, that's all I got for today. I hope you guys have a great weekend, great week ahead, and just reach out to me, call or text if you need me for any reason. All right, I'll see you guys next week.